All right, guys, today we are wrapping up our post-draft rankings of the 2023 NFL Draft Class for fantasy football. And today we're going to be talking about the tight end class, a hotly contested position in fantasy. Some people are very pro tight ends, think you should get the best one. Some people would rather punt the position. Regardless, it's a very controversial position and one that needs to be discussed, as this is one of the better tight end classes we have seen enter the NFL in a long time. So as always, like the video, subscribe to this channel, comment down below whether you agree or disagree with my rankings, and I'll see you after that intro. Welcome back into Twin Takes Fantasy Football. Today we're wrapping up our series talking about post-draft rankings and where I think these guys should slot in for rookie drafts, how you should value them. Talking about the tight end group. And yes, I know we're a little bit out removed from the draft. This channel is a little bit slower than some of the bigger fantasy channels. We don't get content out as rapidly as they do, but we're doing our best over here at Twin Takes, and I think there's still quite a bit of value in putting out these rankings. Some of the rookie drafts go into June, maybe even early July, based on the series or based on the leagues that you're in. And, it's good if you're trying to make trades going into rookie camps, going into preseason, or even redraft. So, I think there's still some value in getting these rankings out here. So let's conclude with my tight end rankings, and we'll start off with my tight end one, and that's going to be Michael Mayer, the guy that's been my tight end one in this class for the past 2 years, a prospect that has been analyzed and overanalyzed for many, many, many moons. I mean, coming out of the college football season, he's my tight end one, pre-draft tight end one, post-draft tight end one. I don't think the draft capital and the lace rise of Dalton Kincaid really affects that. I think, yes, there was a tight end selected in the first round. That was Dalton Kincaid. And Michael Mayer, second round draft capital, 204, number 35 overall. But he goes to the Las Vegas Raiders, which is a great landing spot. And I think the case with Michael Mayer is just a very classic case of prospect fatigue. It's a guy that's been analyzed and overanalyzed as a tight end one in this class so frequently and so heavily over the past 2 years that when Dalton Kincaid came out and Luke Musgrave came out and Sam LaPorta came out, people are just like, oh, wow, this new hotness, this new freshness. Let's, We're bored of Michael Mayer. He's boring. But just because he's boring doesn't mean he's good. He is really good. He is an above-average pass catcher. He attacks the ball at the catch point, and he's a great blocker. He's going to be on the field. He's going to make a day one impact for the Las Vegas Raiders, which is not something that many tight ends or many teams can say with the tight ends that they draft. He's one of the very few that will be, tight end one on the depth chart going into training camp, and that's because they traded away Darren Waller to the New York Giants. Foster Moreau was going to leave the team going to the Saints until he was diagnosed with, I believe it was Hodgkin's lymphoma, or some sort of cancer. So obviously we pray for the swift recovery of Foster Moreau there. But there is no tight end room to speak of for the Las Vegas Raiders. And this is Jimmy Garoppolo, a quarterback that has very heavily relied on his tight ends in the past. And I think Michael Mayer is going to come into a very high-powered offense under Josh McDaniels. He's an offensive-minded coach. He can get that offense cooking. And I think Michael Mayer will have a very, very productive spot and a very high target share in this offense. And I like the landing spot. I like the talent. And I'm sticking with my guns than the guy that's been the tight end one in this class for over a year. Let's move on. Tight end number 2 for me. This is where we find Dalton Kincaid. So yeah, goes to the Buffalo Bills, has the first round draft capital, draft number 26 overall. The Bills did trade up to get him, which does mean something. I do believe that, that lens that it's not they just took the player that fell to them. They were actively targeting Dalton Kincaid in their offense. So it seems that, Sean McDermott and the rest of the brass over there in Buffalo has a plan for Dalton Kincaid to go into the offense. He was my tight end 2 in pre-draft. He remains my tight end 2 in post-draft. And I think he's going to have a good fit in this Bills offense. I think as far as landing spots, this is a great landing spot for Dalton Kincaid. He's not going to be relied upon to be the dominant tight end or really fill out all the tight end responsibilities like Kyle Pitts was asked to last year. The Bills just signed Dawson Knox to a hefty contract extension last offseason, so he will still probably be playing their inline tight end, being, that pocket mover, that extra 6 offensive lineman as need be. And then Dalton Kincaid can come in and really be that, second pass catcher to Stephon Diggs. Obviously, the Gabe Davis experiment is not over, but it did not achieve the heights that people were hyping it up to be last year. So, adding another pass catcher, adding another guy that can come in and be a very, very reliable set of hands for Josh Allen. I think is going to tremendously help out the offense. I just don't think he's going to be. You just always get into trouble when you comp these guys to legendary All-Pro Hall of Famers like Travis Kelce, and I think that's just going to be an outlier. I'm betting my money that Dalton Kincaid is not Travis Kelce, and I think that would be the safe bet in this situation. And I just think anywhere in the first round is really, really rich for me in a rookie draft. Moving on to my tight end 3. I know a guy was taken actually ahead of Mayer. Mayer is actually the 3rd tight end off the board, but I'm going to go with Lucas Musgrave. I actually really like him a little bit more than Sam LaPorta. Lucas Musgraves comes in. He was my tight end 3 in the pre-draft rankings. He remains my tight end 3 in the post-draft rankings. 4th tight end off the board, going high in the 2nd round at the 11th pick of the 2nd round, which is the 42nd pick overall. And he goes to the Green Bay Packers. And I think this is just another example of an amazing, amazing landing spot for Luke Musgraves. They got rid of Robert Tonyan. He went and signed with the Bears. Mercedes Lewis is no longer with the team anymore. And then also you have the only tight end on the roster currently is Josiah DeGuara. Hasn't been super involved in the offense over the many years that he spent at Green Bay. I think Luke Musgraves comes in 6'6", 255, athletic freak as long as he can stay healthy. That's been his main concern at Oregon State, was his ability to stay healthy. But, when he's on the field, he's absolutely dominant. Maybe one of the most athletic tight ends in this draft class. And I've always said, target tight ends that are with rookie or first-year starting quarterbacks. Tight ends are always those safety blankets. I mean, this is what kind of led me to drafting Mark Andrews when it was the first year that Lamar was starting. This is what led me to drafting Evan Ingram last year. And that's on record on this channel about a year ago. And obviously, they weren't rookies, Lamar and Trevor, but, there's their second year, in first time in a new offense, and they relied heavily on their pass catching tight ends. And I think, Jordan Love, with his first foray as a starter into the NFL, is going to rely very heavily on his tight end as that safety blanket. And that's why I love Lucas Musgrave here. And in the 3rd round, he's a tremendous value. I really like where he's falling in the 3rd round, and draft capital I can really get behind. Number 4. My tight end 4 is going to be Sam LaPorta. You'll see people take him in the 2nd round. I've talked to a lot of people in my leagues and leagues I play in. The consensus is that he's a mid-2nd round pick for them just based on draft capital alone, which is, again, high 2nd round. He was the 2nd tight end off the board to the Detroit Lions, going at the 3rd pick of the 2nd round, number 34 overall. And, he's a very, very athletic tight end. And again, the same things we talked about in the other videos, whether it was Hendon Hooker, whether it was Jahmyr Gibbs, but it's just the fact that, I have a lot of faith in Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator, a guy that, again, head coach, had offers, came back to Detroit, wanted to build something. And, I mean, that this Detroit, they didn't make the smartest draft decisions. I'm not commending them for drafting well, but they got their guys. They got guys that they wanted in the offense. And they were not bashful about it at all. They got Jahmyr Gibbs. They got Jack Campbell. They got Sam LaPorta. They got Brian Branch. So they went out and they were aggressively targeted these guys. And, I believe that in a competent offense, one of the top 5 offenses in points for with the Lions last year, I think it only gets better. They clearly have a lot of confidence in Jared Goff to run this offense. And I think Sam LaPorta as a tight end is going to be very involved. He might not be as big a pass catching role. I think he's going to, set up screens, set up blocks, really help out the other options in this offense. But this is why he slots in as my tight end 4, a guy that, he'll do the dirty work. He'll be a kneecap biter like Dan Campbell loves him to be, and maybe he gets an expanded receiving role maybe 2 or 3 years down the line. I don't expect him to come in and be a startable tight end in year 1, but, clearly the love, devotion, and dedication is there from the Lions, and definitely a guy that you can take a shot on late in drafts. I say like end of the 3rd round, early 4th round is where I'd be comfortable taking him, but there's no way his capital lets him there, so a little bit rich for my blood. I'd trade for him a little bit later. Tight end, number 5. So far, we had the first 1 through 4 tight ends all match up with my pre-draft rankings. This is where we're actually we're going to vary a little bit. And my tight end 5 is Luke Schoonmaker, who's previously, he's not unranked. He was my tight end 8 in my pre-draft rankings. He jumps all the way up to my tight end 5. Based on landing spot alone, and draft capital. I should say draft capital because he goes in the 2nd round, late in the 2nd round, 27th pick, 58 overall, but still day 2 2nd round draft capital is very, very valuable for a tight end position. And he goes to the Dallas Cowboys, a team that heavily uses their tight ends. Dak Prescott, a quarterback that is known to get tight ends involved. and they got rid of Dalton Schultz. Jake Ferguson nor Pendon Hendershot really showed much of anything to get you excited about last year. Yeah, they're good rotational guys. They're good inline tight ends to block. But as far as, a chain mover, a sure set of hands, a guy that's going to be athletic and come in and perform like the receiving threat that Dalton Schultz was 2 years ago, that's Luke Schoonmaker. I think he comes in. I think takes some time to develop. He's very, very raw as a prospect. So I think it's going to be a good rotation of Ferguson and Schoonmaker, and then maybe Peyton Hendershot comes in on some of those second and third downs. He's more of a speedy guy, helps stretch the field on third down. So maybe that's where Peyton Hendershot gets used. But Schoonmaker could be a great pick. I mean, if you're picking up at the end of the third round, maybe fourth round, I mean, he's a guy that could turn into a very valuable tight end asset a couple years down the line. And again, the investment in the second round, I love. And then, going to a great situation with the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys tight end was always going to be very, very high on my list. And that's why Schoonmaker gets it in here at tight end number 5. Tight end number 6 is going to be Brenton Strange, tight end out of Penn State. He was my tight end 10 in my pre-draft rankings. I almost didn't include him in my pre-draft rankings. I almost made Will Mallory the tight end 10, but I decided at the last second change it to Brenton Strange, and I'm glad I did because in my post-draft rankings, he shot up to my tight end 6. He also got second-round draft capital. That's 5 tight ends that had second-round draft capital, picked with the 61st overall pick, which would be the 30th pick in the second round, and he goes to the Jaguars. Now, there's 2 ways this could play out. He slots in behind Evan Ingram, and, Evan Ingram re-signs there next year. Apparently, Trevor Lawrence is a very, very big fan of Evan Ingram, so maybe Evan Ingram comes back, and Brenton Strange plays more of a true inline tight end role. Or the Jaguars let go of Evan Ingram after this year, after the 1-year franchise tag, and Brenton Strange steps up to be the tight end 1 in that room. And again, it's hard to ignore that, his position coach at Penn State, who is notorious for being the guy that called Gronk being good, being the guy that predicted Travis Kelce being a superstar. And I think he predicted like Kittle as well. He's been just seemed to have like the magic touch with tight ends. He said Brenton Strange is going to be the next superstar in the league. So, a guy that in the 4th round, in the 5th round, if you have that extra spot, I'm taking a shot on him. I don't think it's crucial to keep him on your bench because you can probably pick him up for little to nothing next offseason, and he won't have much of an impact this year, but pick him up right before they figure out what to do with Evan Ingram next year. He could be a screaming value a year or 2 down the line. Number 7, diving deep, going from the 2nd round all the way to the 7th round, is going to be Zach Coons out of Old Dominion. I don't understand how this guy lasted to the 7th round. He is the most athletic tight end in this class. He had the highest relative athletic score, or the RAS score. This dude is just freaky athletic. 6'8", 251 pounds. This dude is a monster. And I think this is a Jets team that is searching for a guy that can be, another receiving threat. We've seen in the past, Aaron Rodgers is not adverse to tossing balls to his tight ends, especially in the end zone. They get a lot of end zone targets. So a 6'8" guy like Zach Kuntz, post him up in the back of the end zone, let him go up for a jump ball. I think he's going to be Aaron Rodgers' best friend 5 yards and in. Also, this is a team that, they put in major investments into, it was Irv Smith. It was definitely CJ Uzama last year, and I believe they also paid Irv Smith, who's now moved on to the Bengals. But, they've tried. They try to get these like high-end tight ends. They've tried to invest money in tight ends and just never worked. So they go after Zach Kuntz, a guy that, again, extremely raw, but extremely athletic. The traits are there. I've said this about a few other prospects, but he's more of an athlete that plays tight end rather than a tight end that plays athlete. So there is some development there. But I think after you get rid of Elijah Moore, there's not many receiving options in this Jets offense. And as Aaron Rodgers coming in as a guy who loves to post up tight ends in the back of the end zone for receiving touchdowns, I think the upside on Zach Kuntz is great. Obviously not going to be drafting him here in the rookie draft, but if you have 5 rounds, throw a shot on him in the 5th round. Tight end premium, maybe the 4th round, but definitely a guy that I would, UDFA or just keep an eye on waivers and see how the reports come out of training camp. And he was one of the few tight ends that he was tight end 7 coming in my pre-draft rankings. He's tight end 7 coming out. So at least I nailed one of the later round tight ends. Moving on, number 8 is going to be Cameron Latu out of Alabama. we really are getting to guys that I'm not even like thinking about drafting right now. This is just 8, 9, and 10 are really just to like fill out the top 10 list. So we have an even number here. My pre-draft ranking, he was tight end 9. He also now bumps up one spot to tight end 8 just because of the fall of 2 guys above him. Goes to the San Francisco 49ers with their slew of 3 third-round picks in a row. He was the third of the third-round picks with number 38 in round 3, pick 101 overall. I mean, he's going to be stuck behind George Kittle. George Kittle is the tight end there for the next 2 years at least. They'll probably extend him. He is not that old. Cameron Latu comes in for some two tight end sets. George Kittle's health hasn't been the most reliable in recent years, so you could possibly look at him as a backup option. Brock Purdy definitely is a guy that loves throwing it to his tight ends. So this is like a deep, deep sleeper. You know, if Kittle goes down with an injury, you maybe pick him up as like a desperation dart throw like halfway through the season. But I think this is actually a better landing spot and better draft capital than most people are giving Cameron Latu credit for. Moving on to tight end number 9 is going to be Darnell Washington. He's a 6th offensive lineman. I don't know what to tell you. My pro comp for him is Mo Cox. He might get, I mean, even at Georgia, he had 27 targets all year. I don't see that changing at the NFL level. I'm looking at him as someone that Pittsburgh brought in to help establish the run game, to help build the picket fence around Kenny Pickett, to help Najee Harris, in the run game, just help out that O-line. He's going to be a 6th offensive lineman. He's going to be playing in line 99% of the time. He's not going to be running routes, and if it is, it's going to be once every blue moon. He's going to be that guy that gets 1 to 2 targets a game, and if he gets that target in the end zone and catches it, then you might be happy. But people who are talking about, oh, this is terrible for Pat Freiermuth managers, it's not. It might eat into 5 or 7 targets that Pat Freiermuth will have all year. Pat Freiermuth is still the go-to tight end as far as receptions, as far as the passing offense, and Darnell Washington I just don't think is ever going to make that leap into a guy that could ever break out as a pass catcher or someone relevant for fantasy. Just let someone else take him in the 3rd round. Let someone else, let him be the landmine on someone else's team. And he's just Mo Cox. Just remember that one. Last but not least, well, probably least, he is ranked number 10 for a reason. It's going to be Tucker Kraft, a guy that, how could you put a guy that had 3rd round draft capital here at number 10? Well, he was picked 15th in the 3rd round, number 78 overall, and he goes to the Green Bay Packers. And if you remember, there's another Green Bay Packers tight end we already talked about on this list, a Packer that I like, or a tight end that I like much more than Tucker Kraft, and that's Luke Musgrave. He's taller, he's faster, he's more athletic. I think he's just going to be a bigger force in the passing game. Tucker Kraft can come in and be, that secondary tight end on tight end 2 sets. He could be a great special teams guy. He's going to be in there, blocking in line for the running game, whether it's AJ Dillon or Aaron Jones. I mean, he's a workhorse. He's gonna be a great NFL player. He's gonna be a guy that gets his feet dirty. The classic brings his lunch pail to work kind of player. He's just not gonna reap the rewards for fantasy success. So, as far as the split between the Packers tight ends, I'm taking Luke Musgrave. I'm all in on Musgrave. Kraft is more of that scrappy blocker. Honestly, might be like a fullback kind of player, does the dirty work, special teams, but just not going to be there for you on fantasy. So, just disappointing for a guy that I was very high on. He was my pre-draft ranking number 5 tight end, and a guy that I thought was super athletic and in the right situation could flourish. I just don't think there's going to ever be the opportunity for him to elevate to that tight end 1 position in Green Bay. So that's going to wrap it up for my tight end rankings, and that's going to be all my rankings for all my fantasy relevant positions. So you have essentially my top 40 as it stretches across QBs, wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends. Gave you some other honorable mention names as well for the positions that are a little bit deeper, like wide receiver and running back. So yeah, we'll probably follow this up with there'll be more content coming out throughout the summer periodically. We'll do some mock rookie drafts. I'm I'll do this one. You're looking at the screen right here. This was all auto drafted. I'm going to do one that where like I pick every single one, so you can see kind of where I want to position all these players. Give you a little bit, relative value, like in wide receivers compared to running backs. So keep an eye out for that. And looking forward to a great fantasy season in 2023. Take care, guys.